That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Tótem, the sophomore film directed by Lila Avilés, which premiered in competition at the 2023 Berlin International Film Festival. It is being released courtesy of Janus Films, January 26th, 2024.
You said directorial debut?
Sophomore film.
Oh, sorry. Their first film?
The Chambermaid from 2018, which is very well regarded, about a woman working as a cleaning lady in a luxury hotel in Mexico City.
What is Tótem about? 7-year-old Sol is spending the day at her grandfather's home for a surprise party for Sol's father, Tona. As daylight fades, Sol comes to understand that her world is about to change dramatically. What's your pull quote?
An impressively arranged ensemble of characters unite in Avilés' gentle sophomore film about a symbolic sojourn to death.
Mine. Beautifully crafted, Tótem is an intimately authentic, if not sterile, examination of life and death. I did really enjoy this film.
I did as well. I know that many were shocked this won nothing from the jury at the film festival. I believe it did make the short list for international film for the Oscars and ultimately didn't make the final cut, but very impressive filmmaker between both films.
So I read this premise prior to watching the film, which made me think it was going to be something different, because I kept asking you, like, oh, is something going to happen? Like, because it's saying, like, this child's life is going to change dramatically. So I kept expecting there to be, like, chaos at some point, and it's not really that. It's actually quite the opposite. Because, so we spend the day at the home Tona is staying in, which is his father's home. And the father, who seems to be quite ill himself, doesn't seem to have much of a connection with Tona. And Tona's just stuck in this room with his nurse because he is very ill. It would appear he has some sort of cancer, and we only know that because there's mention of chemotherapy. Mm-hmm. So Tona's daughter Sol, the mother, is not with Tona anymore. So the mother goes to drop Sol off. And then we spend the day with everyone preparing for this party. And we see that Tona's two sisters are at the house. Mm-hmm. And they're kind of scattered and not really engaged with Tona. Then later on, we see Tona's brother show up. Mm-hmm. And then the party happens. And it's kind of a feat to get Tona to make an appearance because he doesn't feel well.
Yeah.
But he does. Everyone says their birthday wishes.
Which are really goodbyes.
Which are essentially goodbyes because he's not long for this world. The party ends on a high note. Like, the party moves inside and there are like a couple little performances. They have cake. And then we cut to what seems like maybe a few days later. And we see Tona's room is empty. So clearly he has died. The end. So it's very, like, it's not fussy at all.
No, it's not. I would say it's definitely not ostentatious.
No.
And I think it has some kind of a sobering, grim tone, but it feels like most everyone involved in the making of this birthday party / goodbye, they seem to be really kind of avoiding the issue.
Yes.
Like everybody has already kind of resigned themselves to the fact, Tona himself, that there's an inevitable end. And the one sister that is kind of trying to suggest he should try chemotherapy, she's also the one that's most distanced herself from the group.
Yeah. Which I thought felt very authentic.
Yes.
Yes. So that is what I enjoyed about the film. I also liked how it's shot.
Mm-hmm. Diego Tenorio is the DP, and I also think the editing is great. Omar Guzman was the editor.
Yes.
Because it feels very intimate, and we have a lot of close-ups, especially of Sol, and we're kind of, it's not really from her perspective, but I think the audience can most align themselves with her, or kind of a child not really knowing what all the adults are doing or what they're about.
So in my pull quote, when I said it felt kind of sterile, it's kind of, I had said after we watched it that it feels like it's lacking a little seasoning, because the cinematography would lend itself to us getting more intimate with some of these, like getting a little more interiority from these characters, but we really don't know anything about anyone. It's like I'm a spectator on this family on this day, and we get the gist of what's happening, which I did enjoy. Mm-hmm. But I didn't. The film ended, and I only kind of got emotional one time, which I can explain in a second. But overall, I was left with just like, oh, I was just. It felt like I was telling you yesterday that, like, listening to a coworker who maybe I'm not even that close to tell me a story about their family. Like, oh, over the holidays, they went to go stay with their grandma, and this happened. And it's like, well, okay, not very interesting. And I don't really know you that well, so I'm not super invested in these people I really don't know. Is kind of how I felt about this movie, except that maybe my coworker's a very good storyteller. So, like, it was interesting in that way. Like, I got a really detailed picture of who everyone is, like, sort of visually, or superficially, but really. And then because we focused so much on the daughter, it led me to think I was getting something more eventually. But really, she's just like, it's almost like she is used to place us within the story.
Well, yeah, and her name, I think, means a lot, right?
Sun.
The sun is the center of the universe, but there's also, I think, an old professor of his. There's a lot of subtext, I think, visually and in the screenplay that I think make this feel a lot more rich if you start digging. And there's a professor of his that is giving a speech and talks about. I think it's the professor that's talking about. There's two different kinds of suns. There's the sun in the day and there's a nocturnal sun. And the final shot of Soul in the darkness, only lit by the flames from the candles on the cake. To me, she's like the nocturnal sun.
Well, I'm taking her name to mean, and then the fact that she is sort of the character we're focusing on is sort of like all of these other people are orbiting around her, but not so much in that she's the center of this story, more so like how we're orienting ourselves with everyone in it.
Sure.
And I think that's very effective.
At one point she steals Grandpa's phone and is asking, she says she's chatting with the phone when Cruz, the nursemaid, approaches her about it, but she's asking when her father's going to die and when will the world end.
Yeah.
And the phone gives her an answer about in several million years the sun has become
if the sun explodes,
it's
then
going to
we'll
become
all
a
die.
red giant.
Yeah.
So it's like, almost like she's in a way asking about her own end as Soul.
I'm just going to go through my notes. The one sister who we see coloring her hair. Oh,
Alejandra.
I liked her, like the actor, and I liked her vibe. But when we first meet her, she's coloring her hair, which of course was a nightmare to me because she's not doing a very good job being specific about it. It's just all piled up on her head and she keeps touching it. And she's smoking a cigarette.
Constantly smoking. Yeah.
While she's coloring her hair. That drove me crazy. And then she washes her hair, rinses her hair out in the kitchen sink, which I know a lot of people do. And then also, this is not where she lives. So it's like, what are you doing? But it says a lot about her character that she's probably overwhelmed and like not maybe good at time management.
We are told several times that the family really doesn't have any more money. And their mother previously passed away from cancer, which is kind of dictating how they're dealing with Tona's decision.
Yes, because it would seem that they did sort of try to front the cost of chemotherapy and ultimately, like, she's dead still. So maybe that's influencing why they're not wanting to do it with Tona.
One of the best scenes, well, one of the few comedic scenes is Alejandra has brought in a witch.
Oh, yes,
Ludica is her name, to cleanse the house of the evil spirits. And this woman, like,
that's a very good scene.
It's a very good scene because right away she's like, "Oh, there's bad spirits here," and she's pointing to all the artwork on the wall as evidence, which looks like a bunch of unhappy people, but are very nice pieces of art. She's like, "You got to get rid of all this."
The best part of this, well, it's all funny with her, but I think the ending when she wants her money. And she's like, oh, well, 2,000 pesos, right? And she's like, oh, we need to talk about that because this was very strenuous on me.
She's like, I'm not going to be able to work for 3 days because of this job.
I'll take a break, so I need 3,000 pesos.
But it's making more funny because as we watch her burning a dinner roll on a stick as she's cleansing the house, she sounds monotonous the whole time.
I thought that was very well done. And the actor playing the spirit lady, I thought did a fantastic job. Speaking of other funny things.
Maricela Villarreal.
The grandfather / father, the person who owns the house we're in, I'm assuming had like throat cancer or something because he speaks with a voice box. And It's funny. It's funny. Anytime I had a family member who had a voice box, and it never gets old that it just sounds so crazy.
It sounds crazy, and he's a kind of a cranky, cold
He's not a
person,
nice man.
and he snatches that away because two of the little grandkids. There's a cute girl, Soul's cousin Esther, who is kind of a scene stealer. You'll either like her or be annoyed by her. It's a fine line, but he yanks that away from them. I also think it's important to note that even from the very beginning, the environment, animals are encroaching upon them. And I think that's all symbolic about the totem and part of this lineage and the environment. And
well, let's talk about it, because there are a lot of bugs. We see like praying mantis, ants,
scorpions,
snails, scorpions, and then the title of the movie, Totem, and even the way the title's oriented, going vertically. Mm-hmm. Because the idea of a totem, and I don't have ownership of this cultural symbol, but my understanding is that because people often use the phrase like something is low on the totem pole, which is considered disrespectful because that's not even what it means. It's more like, it's just, the placement is arbitrary from what I understand, but it's interesting in this film because I think the bugs that we see sort of represent like how maybe as humans, because there's also a bird that the dad tries to shoo away from his like bonus room or wherever he is. And it's like, y'all gonna be dead and these animals will still be here operating. Because even after Tona dies, we see the scorpion. Like they're persisting. So like humans, like our placement amongst everything, how we see ourselves, maybe how, family member, like all the friends who come to celebrate Tona, of course they have so much regard for him and they want to see him thrive when clearly he's not going to. And the fact that we never really understand how Tona feels about his mortality, I think is powerful.
I think all we get is the fact that he has decided to secretly have his art sold off because he's an artist.
What did you think about that? Because he does it in secret.
He does it in secret, and there's another mention of it because...
Oh, I didn't mention that Tona is an artist, so he has a lot of painted art that's in the house, in his room. He continues to work on art.
Because Soul asked, like, where are all my dad's paintings? And Alejandra says he asked us to take them down. And we don't know for sure, but, that could be the proceeds would help pay for, give some money to his family is the only thing he can leave behind. But
sure. What did you think? So, like the little girl who you said people might find annoying, I thought she kind of was, but still their voices are cute. But at one point, she's in the bathroom. We see both little girls sort of interacting very intimately with their mothers, because the opening scene is Soul with her mother getting ready to go to the house.
Lucía. Mm-hmm.
And they're in a public restroom and like they're both peeing together and the mom is peeing in the sink while the daughter's on the toilet. And then the other little girl, she's in the bathroom with her mom while she's getting ready, and the mom has like electrodes on her ass to like contract them, I guess, for like a lazy workout. But the little daughter's playing with a Diva cup and she's asking her mom like, is this a wine glass?
Is this for wine?
Her mom is like, bitch, no. But what, like, I wondered what do you think it means that we sort of get these intimate moments with the daughters, with their moms, and also like we do spend a lot of time with these kids sort of fumbling through things. Like, how is that significant to the story about like circle of life and grieving? And
well, we only see the mothers being close. The fathers, Tona's dying, and then the grandfather seems kind of emotional. They're just griping about him. So it like this is the only kind of familial connection, fruitful connection that we're seeing.
So one of the sisters of Tona, she's the most disconnected from him. Like she doesn't really want to see him.
Nuri,
the one with the buzzed head.
Mm-hmm.
She is baking a cake for her brother, and I've never seen a cake catch on fire in the oven. Have you?
No, not
that
like
cake
that.
was on fire, like flames coming from the top.
It was. I don't know what she did to it.
But. Yeah, that was very curious. Like, that's a choice, mm-hmm. and I just because that cake, she ends up decorating it in the like she. I guess she's a painter too, and she paints Van Gogh's.
I think it's Starry Night
and it's a beautiful cake. In fact, it's so beautiful and detailed that sister doesn't even like she's late attending the party because she's drunk in the kitchen painting because she wants to avoid seeing her brother. But I wondered if the cake on fire had any, like, it has to be deliberate.
Yes,
but I'm not sure why, except that it was such a weird thing to see.
Well, then she's painting like kind of the night on fire, basically.
Sure.
So symbolically, there's also
Well, speaking of fire, there's a hot air balloon that they send off. Like I guess like that's a birthday tradition wherever they are. But that hot air balloon catches on fire.
and I think that's all in keeping with this is kind of the inverse of what that party's intended for, really. There's also there's two birthday wishes. Well, they're two wishes. In the beginning, there's a scene where her mother's driving and she's like, "Oh, what did you wish for?" She's like, "Oh, that dad won't die." And then Tona's wish as he's blowing out the candles is that he says, "I don't have a wish." Like, this is the end.
Yep. Tona's dad we see Tona's dad being very cold to everyone, cranky old man. We see him working on like grooming his bonsai trees. And then we see that he's given his son a bonsai tree for his birthday. And he just hands it to him and it's a big tree.
He's like, "I put it in one of your mother's ceramics."
And it's like, and then he just walks away. Like, first of all, this man's gonna be dead. Like,
But both of them.
like
most
both
likely.
of them actually. So, what do you think the significance was of this dad working on this tree to give it to his son, who he knows is not going to be able to enjoy it?
I think that to me that's symbolic of he's avoiding the fact that his son's gonna die. Like it's almost like willing by me giving you something that you have to tend to, you're gonna make it through.
Sure.
Almost. But
At the end of the party, when it moves into the house, we see someone do like a little dance for Tona, and then his daughter does a lip sync performance to an opera song, which is really cute because she's standing on her mother's shoulders, and it's like those cartoons or like Tom and Jerry where they stack each other up in like a trench coat. And I thought it was cute, but it's also funny because that little girl, she would not win a lip sync on Drag Race.
No,
she was not very good.
she did just fine. She hit the right beats at least.
So
I like who plays the mother too, Iazua Larios, who's in Apocalypto.
Oh, well, speaking of her, we have an inside joke about Glor and Clutton because I combined the names of
Glenn Close and Lauren Hutton.
So I've always thought Glor and Clutton would be a fun name. But in this movie, the mom, actress,
You kept saying she looked like Shelley Duvall from Three Women.
I think she reminds me of Shelley Duvall from Three Women mixed with Beatrice Dahl and Inside. And then you said, oh, her name could be Beatrice Dalval. So I might add that to my fake actor names, Beatrice Dalval. So I did think this movie was excellent. The little seasoning that's missing, I was comparing it to that French movie One Fine Morning.
Un Beau Matin by
With Léa Seydoux.
Mia Hansen-Love. Mm-hmm.
And I thought that movie was excellent. And it's very similar to me in the sense that we're focusing on sort of
This
like
character dying, a familial death.
in a drama about characters dealing with the death. And it's all very basic and simple. Nothing extraordinary happens. We're just witnessing the sort of regular people dealing with a common thing. But that movie, I think, excelled in the area that this one doesn't, which is that I felt like I understood these people, and also the way that film is shot, One Fine Morning. Because Tótem feels much more intimate, lots of close-up shots. And I, as the audience, I didn't feel like I was in it. So, like, I'm just witnessing something. Whereas One Fine Morning, I actually saw myself in this movie. Like, how would I handle these things? How would I feel in these moments? And I think that's what's missing from this movie. Mm-hmm. So One Fine Morning, I think, is a complimentary film.
Yes.
That sort of handles that piece better. And then I think there were two movies that I kept thinking I was going to get the vibe of is that film, It's My Party.
Uh-huh.
And then Beaches.
Derek Roberts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with Bette Midler and Barbara Hershey, which I'm glad this film didn't do. It's kind of the opposite of that.
Yes. It's not trying to be... It's matter of fact.
Yes. But very well done.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
What would you give?
Salma Hayek executive produced it. Since Janus Films has it, I'm assuming this will be released eventually as part of their new... kind of Criterion's new sideline, Janus Contemporaries.
Oh. What would you give Tótem?
I give it a 4. Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. I thought it was excellent.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No.
Join us on Patreon and listen to our podcast. Bye.